Picture this. Your beliefs about control can fundamentally shape your life outcomes.
Wow, that's intriguing.
Absolutely. This concept, known as locus of control, helps explain whether individuals see themselves as the architects of their futures or merely products of their circumstances.
It's fascinating how Julian B. introduced this idea back in 1954, creating a framework that permeates psychology today.
So, what exactly is the difference between internal and external locus of control?
Good question. Those with a strong internal locus believe their actions lead to outcomes in their lives, while externals often attribute outcomes to outside forces.
This framework has implications in numerous fields, from educational psychology to clinical settings.
I can see how that could really impact someone's mental health.
Certainly, the perception of control affects stress levels, resilience to adversity, and overall life satisfaction.
And don't forget the ongoing debates surrounding measures of locus of control, like whether we should use domain-specific or global assessments.
This is getting intriguing. What happens when someone doesn't fit neatly into either category?
Great segue. The historical roots of locus of control can be traced back to Rotter's social learning theory.
How did this all get started?
In his 1966 paper, Rotter summarized over a decade of research on control expectations. Early studies explored how people attribute their outcomes, which laid the groundwork for future theories.
So, it took a while to develop the theories we have today. Were there any significant contributors?
Yes, indeed. Rotter's students, like William H. James, further explored how people perceive their successes or failures.
And this led to insights about typical and atypical expectancy shifts, divided by those who rely on ability versus pure luck.
That really makes you think. So could our beliefs about control be linked to more complex attributes like emotional stability?
Absolutely. And this brings us to the more nuanced debates around stable versus unstable attributions.
It's an engaging topic, especially as we consider how these views have evolved in psychological research over the decades.
So, what's the latest thinking on these divisions?
What we see today is that internals tend to believe they can affect their outcomes, while externals may believe their circumstances control them.
Does this difference impact how they handle achievements or stress?
Definitely. Those with an internal locus often exhibit higher motivation and resilience, while externals might feel overwhelmed.
That sounds pretty stark. But what if someone has traits from both sides?
That's where we encounter bilocals. They blend internal and external loci, allowing them to cope effectively by taking personal responsibility, yet also trusting outside resources.
It's a unique balance that can enhance their ability to manage stress and health challenges.
So there's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to locus of control.
Exactly. And it opens the door to exploring whether our attributions might change depending on context or mood.
That's quite compelling. Can you give me examples of how this plays out in real-life scenarios?
When it comes to measuring locus of control, the most prominent tool is Rotter's 23-item force choice scale.
Are there other instruments to measure this?
Certainly. Some other notable scales include the Duttweiler Internal Control Index and Byler's Scale for Children, among others.
What's the difference between these scales?
Rotter's scale has its limitations, specifically its force choice format, while Duttweiler's incorporates a Likert-type scale, allowing for a more nuanced understanding of locus of control.
This greater flexibility helps capture how individuals perceive their control over a range of situations.
So there's really a growing toolbox for psychologists to assess locus of control?
Exactly. And each measurement brings us closer to understanding how locus of control impacts behavior across different contexts.
What challenges come up in using these scales?
Now, let's address a fascinating development in this conversation: attributional style.
What's that all about?
Introduced by Abramson, Seligman, and Teasdale, it expands on the traditional locus of control framework, adding dimensions of stability and globality.
How does that change our understanding?
It provides a richer perspective on how we interpret successes and failures. External versus internal may not fully capture the complexity of human thought.
Right. We can perceive internal causes as stable, yet still feel powerless at times, complicating our responses.
There's so much to unpack here. Is it possible to establish a link between this and mental health, like anxiety or depression?
Oh, absolutely. These concepts tie directly into how our attributions influence our emotional well being.
It sounds crucial. Do you think listeners will have personal experiences about these situations?
They undoubtedly might. I'd encourage listeners to share their insights in the comments about how locus of control affects their lives.
This is such an interactive topic. I can't wait to hear others' stories and thoughts.